Welcome. This is an overview of the updates of AgroforestryX for Puerto Rico and the United States Virgin Islands, which includes conservation of target fauna. At any point, if you need more information about the use of the tool, we encourage you to use this link. You can scan this QR code with your phone or find the link in the description below the video. This will have more details. This video that I'm making now is going to be pretty quick. We're going to move through an example of the use of the tool and the updates for the Caribbean. I'd like to thank our project partners and sponsors. Now, the first thing is, if you haven't made an account yet, go ahead and sign up. Click the sign up button in the upper right corner and fill out all of this information and make yourself an account. We don't keep any of that information. It's all private. Then go ahead and take your credentials to the login page and log in order to start your first new project. So now go ahead to the project tab at the top of the page and scroll down to the bottom where you see the new project button. Select a new project. We're going to name that project. And we're going to select the location. For this, we'll do 120 inches. You could also change that to centimeters or millimeters. And I don't know enough, so I'm going to leave these both as any, but you could refine the soil drainage or the topography as needed for your project site. Elevation, I'm going to do 820 feet, and I'll do 1 hectare for the size of the project. Now, if you are doing this project in coordination with the NRCS or Fish and Wildlife, and you would like to use their specifications, you would like to conform to their standards, then you can click this button. And if you need more information, this will take you to where the information is. Or you can use the regenerative standards, and this is more information about that. Either way, if you select these two during the design process, you will be guided. I'm going to select no restrictions for this project. Then proceed. So now up here in the upper left, we have the project details. And for every page that we go through this design process, those details will be there to remind you. We also have here 2 PDF guides that you can open up at any time that can help guide you through this process. I'm going to wait to open these when we get to the species page, species selection page. For now, we're just going to select a pattern. Let's see. So there's quite a few patterns to choose from. And you can choose 15 or 20 foot widths between rows on center. And let's see, I'm thinking of this one. I think this will work. We're going to do a shade coffee project, and we will leave it at 15 feet and go ahead and move on to the species selection page. So now I'm going to select the species. We have these tables that are broken up by time period and stratification. But if I want help designing this in a way that will work both for my my target crops, like say coffee, but will also enable me to retain long-lived endemic tree species that can provide habitat for special organisms that we are trying to conserve, then I can open up these 2 guides. And so I've already opened them up now. They are in both Spanish and English, and if you click on this button, it'll take you to whichever version it says there. I have the English version open for now. And if you scroll through, you get to the different sections. And I just want you to see, so this breaks down the layering and the system that we use. It also discusses succession. This can be really important in the beginning when you're trying to assess your site to figure out at what point of development it is at, and therefore what species are appropriate, and how would you intervene and move forward from that point. So this is a handy little guide that can help you with that. And we kind of break it down a little bit further so that you can see we've got the short, medium, and long term within each step, right? And we're going to plant all of these at the same time when we plant. So here we have an example of a complete habitat structure. So the structure of the agroforest is complete in time and space. And with that, you can see a bunch of different fauna and a code that shows you where they like to reside. So that way, if you know that you're looking for something particular, you can figure out, well, what does it need, right? Here we've got a breakdown. All of this can be very useful. And now we have examples of incomplete habitat structure and their consequences. So you can get a sense of, like, you know, where your site is at and where you might want to go depending on what your target fauna conservation is. Here we have a table with a list of species from Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands with their common name and the life zones that they are found in. And then we have another table that is the ground cover species that are appropriate to Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So check out that one. And then the next one is the pocket guide to the fauna. And if you scroll down, you can get to, again, we have a similar table to the last one with a complete structure. And then here is an explanation of the guides. We have these like playing cards for each species with codes to tell you information about them, including, like, you know, what regions are they found in, who do they, you know, go with in terms of crop production, their conservation status, etc. Right? And here's a little key down below. You can check that out. So then, for example, let's say I wanted to protect this butterfly. Well, then I would know that it is present pretty much at all strata, and it likes flowers, and it likes branches and the canopy, and it also comes down to the ground. And it is found in mountainous and karst regions, both. So, and some crops that we know it can go with. So in this case, coffee is here, and that would be perfect for the system I'm developing now, right? So now I'll go back to the species selection page, and I can pick at the top of each section. It'll tell me how many species total that there are available slots for, right? So I'm going to try to keep this relatively simple. Maybe we'll do this and a vanilla. Okay. Then I'll go to the medium. And how many do I have? I have 20 slots here. So I'll try to select some diversity of things. And you'll notice that we have the local common names here as well as the species and family. Okay, so that ought to be good. Going to the long-term high. Okay, and now finally the emergent species. I have 12 slots available here. So I'm going to try to do a diversity of Puerto Rican species. Well, might have selected too many of these. We'll be able to deal with that later. So now we're in the medium term. This pattern, there is no low for the medium term. Okay, so we're going to jump right into the medium. We've got 20 slots for this. And so I'm going to try to pick some things I know are pretty common there. That's good. And we'll do mostly cassava. Throw in a little gandul. Maybe some cane. That's good. And now for the emergent, we will do this and this. And that's good. So for each of these, each of the stratum and term, at the bottom, there are 3 options that are the your choice options that come in fast, medium, and slow growth rate. So the first thing you would do if you don't find exactly what you're looking for is you would look for an analogous species, something that's very close in terms of its shape and size and growth rate and function. And then you could just select that and then change the name of it later on in your printout. Or if nothing really matches, you can go down to these your choice and select whichever one you think is closest to your organism. And that will suffice at least for the visualizations, which you'll see in a minute. Now for the short-term crops, we're going to give you a list later on at the end. But for now, we're going to hold that because we're not going to visualize them because it makes for too complicated of a visualization. So with that, we're going to move on to the pruning parameters page. So now this is a long table with the different species that you selected organized by stratum and term. And here you can select the number per quarter acre plot. You can select the pre and post pruning dimensions for height and diameter, and you can choose a lifespan. So for the coffee, I'm going to say 30 years. The tree spinach is 20. The vanilla, I'm going to say 15. Right? And we are going to we're going to bring the coffee down. Maybe that'll be as tall, and we'll cut it in half. And then here we'll do this and this. And we are going to increase the number of these that we have by a lot. How about that? So the tree spinach, long term, low. We are going to let this go to 6 feet, and we'll cut it to 3, 6, and 3. That's fine. Vanilla. And Okay, great. I'm not going to go into that much detail for the rest of them, but if you look, we're now into the long-term medium species, and there's only one or two per quarter acre plot. So for a hectare, that's going to be like 10 times as much, right? But we could go through and decide if there's any of these that we don't want, we could toss them out, zero them out, and then that would increase the number for others. Or we can just switch the numbers around a little bit as we need. Now moving on to the long-term species, you can see we've got 4 or 5 of these high strata. And I'm not really going to mess with any of this stuff until I see that I need to. Moving on to the emergent. And now let's see, yeah, we overshot. So we could decide which ones of these are most important and get rid of a few or switch the numbers around, right? Medium term as well. For monocots, you know, you'll notice that they don't, their pruning parameters are different, right? So just so you understand, that's what that's about. And most of this is pretty good, though I think I will do a little bit more of that and a little bit less of that. Like that. Okay, we'll keep those like that. It's fine, actually. Bring that down like that, and we're good. We'll proceed to the visualizations. So now we're at the visualization page, and you have your initial planting view, right? And so this is what the pattern you're going to use when you go to install. And you can check the placement. These are all live. These are the long term, and over here are the medium term. If you don't like the way they're placed, you can refresh the page and they will be randomly repositioned. And so you can keep refreshing the page until they line up the way you want it to, or just you can just alter the pattern when you actually print it out and go to plant it. So from here I can go to the 3-year view. And again, just like we saw in the planting pattern info boxes that pop up when you click on the info window, we have the spacing for each stratification and term between rows and in-row spacing. We also have here the calculation of the canopy coverage for each of these. So the total here would be 49% of the area is covered, as this is right now, okay? I can move on to a 3-year side view. Again, these are all live. You'll notice that the bubbles with the dotted margin, those are the medium-term species, and the solid margin are the long-term species. And then we can look at the 10-year view. So the medium term have all phased out. Now our total coverage is about 60%. And you can look and see who's who. And so if you wanted to, if you weren't happy with how this was, or if you wanted to increase the coverage, you can go back to the pruning parameters page and alter the diameter and heights of things so that you can get them closer to overlapping but not touching. And the outcome is that you will have, you know, more photosynthetic coverage per area, and you will also be able to predict when you're going to have conflicts. So that can help you plan your management, plan your labor pool. So if all that is good, then we're going to progress to the 2D animations, which just starts running immediately. So you can stop it at any point. You can pull it back or forward. And you'll notice as I do that the perforated margin circles, which are the medium term, they exit. And by 4 years, they've all exited, right? So now we're left with just the long-term species. And you can run through this and just let it play. And we don't see any of these beginning to overlap with each other. It's okay if it's, you know, species of different stratum overlapping with another. But if it's species of the same stratum and they begin to overlap, then you'll want to go back to the pruning parameters page and correct that. Okay, so if that looks good, we're going to go on to the three-dimensional visualization. It starts running like the other, and you can see by about 4 years, a bunch of them phase out. You can grab this and rotate it as you want and hold it in any position, or just click it and let it rotate again. And again, with this, you can pull this to any point and check it out. So now if that works for you, we're going to move on to the summary page. Now, this summary page will have all the details from your project, and you'll be able to print them out as a PDF report or a spreadsheet, which is pretty handy actually. So here you can see all the relevant info organized by stratification and term. You have the patterns, and these are still live. 3-year projection and side view, and then 10-year. Here are your ground cover species and list of short-term crops. Okay, so if all that looks good, you're satisfied with it, then you can go ahead and print out the PDF report, and you are instantly given a 25-page report. Well, the length varies. It'll be as long as needed depending on your project size, right? But again, it has all of that information just like what you saw on the summary page. And this makes it really easy to go out and use this for planting, and it's also very useful for management. And there's some extra info at the bottom for the different species selected. And then finally at the end, you get to your ground cover species and your short-term crops. Okay, now you could also download it as a spreadsheet, which is pretty handy, because here you have your project details, you have the numbers of individuals in your project, you have the common name, the species name and family, and your prunat height, diameter, and productive lifespan are all here. So this makes it very easy to print out these guides and take them out to the field with you, either for planting or for management. And in the next part of this video, I will show you a suggested planting protocol and some suggestions for pruning and management. Okay, so the installation protocol. You're going to take your printout for your project and gather up the materials you see here in this image. Little bamboo stakes, different colored flagging, a pin, some string, and a long measuring tape would be really useful for this. You can use Google Earth or some other type of program to go and find your plot on the map, and then you can measure out and pick the corner pins and where they go and draw a polygon. It is possible to copy these patterns and then bring them into something like Google Earth and overlay them onto the site, as I've done here in the lower left corner, so that you can get some concept of how much space it's going to take and what it will be like and where things will be placed, right? You can also use that to find and overlay the soil data or any other kind of geographic information that you can obtain for your site. Immediately prior to planting, you want to go ahead and prep your beds, line them out, measure them, and then you can take your project species list and use it to create a nursery shopping list. You can make a bunch of tags right away that have the different colors for the different strata and the time periods written on there. And then you can go ahead and flag all the nursery stock, right? So that's already done indoors, so that then when you're ready to go out, it'll be easy to just match up the tags. You're creating duplicates of each tag too, so that every tag that goes into a plant, you have a tag that will go into the ground. So now you grab your flags and your materials and your nursery stock, and you head out to the field, and you will put out first the flags according to the pattern that you're using. So you'll put those in the ground where they belong, and then next you can go and grab your plants and match up the tags, right? Make sure that they are they go together, right? And so then once you've laid them out, you can go ahead and dig in and plant. And we usually start by planting the long-term first, the medium-term second, and finally the short-term crops will fill in all the rest of the space. Make sure you mulch everything really well and water it in really well, and then let it go. Good luck. Now, for management, again, take your guide, either the PDF or the Excel spreadsheet, outside with you, and you can create for yourself something like this, which is a bamboo pole about 20 feet long that has tape on, colored tape, that are markers for increments. So you can do them every 1 foot. But the point is that they change colors to give you the range for each stratum. And this is a really handy thing that you can use, take out with you, and use it to measure the heights and even the diameters of things. So here I actually am holding a bamboo, but I've put these colored graphics over top to highlight it and make it more obvious. But here I am actually using this on our farm, and we have the layers graphic down below for reference. And then you can go in and decide who are your emergents and how low do you want them to be. I'm trying to kind of make a quasi bonsai agroforest here, so I'm bringing things down pretty hard. And then yeah, that's what you do. So good luck again. Now, if you have any questions or need any help, we highly recommend these resources for you. There's an agroforestry design tool overview video in the right corner, and on the bottom there is the link to the user's manual. Again, this QR code can be used by your phone to find the link for the user's manual, or you can just follow the link in the description. Thank you for your attention.